The sky over Orinth was a sickly green, choked with smoke from burning districts. For 112 days, the enemy had hammered the city not with mercy, not with demands, but with unrelenting force. Down in the fortified command post, Captain Ren Marlowe stood over a holographic map, watching red enemy markers creep deeper into the city's heart. The map flickered, each power surge reminding him that the city's generators were dying. His rifle leaned against the table, but he hadn't touched it in hours. The fight was already at their doorstep. Outside, the streets were chaos, not the kind of chaos where people ran for their lives, but the quieter, heavier kind where the defeated had stopped running altogether. The civilians of Orintha's last district huddled in makeshift shelters carved into the old metro tunnels. Children slept curled against their parents, unaware that the world above them was collapsing. Ren's comms officer, Sergeant Halen, stepped forward. "Sir, it's gone quiet on all bands. No signals are getting through. Even the distress channel's dead." Ren's jaw tightened. "Then it's over." Halen swallowed. "The men, they want to know if Earth's answered." Ren didn't look at him. The answer was written on the comms panel, silent, cold. Weeks ago, they'd sent the message. Weeks ago, they'd begged for help. But Orinth was a fringe colony, far from the core routes. Even if Earth had heard, the trip would take too long. And with the Council tying Earth's hands politically, Ren doubted anyone would risk the voyage. "They won't come," Ren said finally. "We hold until we can't. That's all." Hour 117 of the siege. The outer barricades fell at dawn. Ren's men fought with scavenged weapons, running low on ammunition, turning to knives and old slug throwers when the plasma cells ran dry. The enemy came in waves, insectoid creatures in chitin armor, shrieking as they advanced, backed by towering warmechs that crushed vehicles underfoot. In the streets, Corporal Dean and her squad fought their way back from the market district, but she arrived with only 3 of her original 12. Her face was gray, streaked with soot and blood. "They've got air support now," she reported, voice hoarse. "We can't hold the next push." Ren looked around the room. His officers were ghosts, tired eyes, burned uniforms, hands that trembled not from fear, but from exhaustion. This was the end. The last stand. The enemy breached the third line by midday. Artillery shells slammed into buildings, sending shards of ferrocrete raining down. Ron led the remaining 50 soldiers into the plaza at the city center, their final choke point before the tunnels. They stacked barricades of overturned transports and sandbags. Ron knew it wouldn't be enough. In the shelter tunnels below, civilians cried quietly. The walls shook with each distant explosion. Above them, Ren tightened his grip on his rifle and met the eyes of his second-in-command. There was no need for words. They both knew the plan: hold until the last man, then detonate the charges buried in the plaza to prevent the enemy from following the civilians underground. Halen glanced at the sky. Would have been a good day for reinforcements. Ren didn't look up. Don't hope for what isn't coming. The enemy advanced, a black tide pouring down the avenue, their warmechs thundering behind them. The first barrage tore through the barricade. Ren opened fire, the recoil rattling through his arms. The plaza became a killing ground, plasma bolts, shrapnel, screams. Soldiers fell, one after another, their bodies dragged back by comrades who knew they'd never have time to bury them. And then, the sky changed. At first, Ren thought it was just another artillery strike. The air shimmered, the clouds above twisting violently. Then, a sound cut through the battlefield, not the high-pitched whine of enemy fighters, but a deep, rolling thunder, like the atmosphere itself was tearing apart. A ripple of light split the sky in half. The shimmer became a burning wound, and out of it slid a shadow so massive it blotted out the sun. Its hull was black, flecked with scars from 100 battles, its profile unmistakable to anyone who had ever served under the Terran banner. Halen's voice broke into a shout. That's Titan's wrath. It's Earth." The enemy stopped. The entire street went silent. Even the warmechs hesitated, their forward march faltering. The shadow above expanded, unfolding vast weapons arrays along its flanks. Blue light gathered at the tips of its primary cannons. Ren stared upward, his throat tight. They'd said the Titan's Wrath was Earth's strongest warship, the pride of the Terran defense fleet, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. It wasn't just a ship. It was a declaration. Judgment from the heavens. The first shot came without warning, a beam of white-hot energy that lanced through the enemy's forward lines, vaporizing them instantly. Then came the second shot, and the third. Enemy fighters scrambled into the air, but the Titan's Wrath swatted them from the sky with tracking railguns that punched through armor like paper. From orbit, it rained destruction, carving burning scars into the earth where the alien forces had stood. The warmechs crumbled under direct hits, their armored shells splitting like eggshells. Ren and his soldiers didn't move. They didn't have to. The warship above was doing what they couldn't, ending the siege in minutes. Every shot was precise, avoiding the city's intact structures, striking only the invaders. The enemy's retreat began almost instantly, their forces scattering into the wilderness. In the command bridge of the Titan's Wrath, an old Terran admiral watched the carnage unfold and gave the simplest order. Leave no survivors. When the last enemy ship fled into the upper atmosphere, the Titan's Wrath descended low enough for its shadow to fall over the plaza. Dropships launched from its bays, touching down on the cracked ferrocrete. Terran Marines poured out, moving through the streets with practiced efficiency, offering aid to the wounded and escorting civilians from the tunnels. Ron stood in the center of the plaza, his rifle hanging useless at his side. A Marine in dark blue armor approached and handed him a comm unit. A voice came through, calm, firm, carrying the weight of command. Captain Marlowe. Sorry we're late. Ren almost laughed. He glanced at his surviving soldiers, then at the civilians emerging from the shelters. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to believe. They had been wrong. Help had come. And it had come riding the strongest warship Earth had ever built. Day 57 without contact. Lieutenant Mira Avas sat at the comms desk of Fort Kestrel, staring at the empty space where the signal bars used to be. The console still hummed, but the feed was static and endless, meaningless whisper of a galaxy that no longer seemed to care they were alive. The station had been crippled in the first week of the blockade. Power was rationed. Gravity was unreliable. The hydroponic bays were dead. What food they had left was measured in hours, not days. She pressed the worn red button on the recorder. Audio log, Lieutenant Mira Avas, Day 57. Supplies, minimal. Crew morale, lower. Enemy blockade continues without change. She paused, looking at the blinking cursor. We sent the beacon, she added, softer now, as if speaking to herself. Earth would have received it. But it's too far. We were too far. She clicked the recorder off and leaned back, eyes closing. Sleep didn't come anymore, only the heavy fog between exhaustion and dread. Day 61. The blockade fleet still hung outside their sensor range, a silent noose around the station. Their ships were like black specks against the stars, unmoving, patient. Predators waiting for the last flicker of life to fade before moving in. In the mess hall, she sat with her crew. They weren't really eating anymore, just pushing rehydrated paste around in metal trays. Ensign Talo finally said what everyone was thinking. We should just surrender. They'll take us prisoner. At least we'll live. No, Mira said, sharper than she intended. Talo looked at her like she was mad. There's no help coming. You know that, right? Myra's spoon clattered onto the tray. She stood. I know we sent the beacon. That's enough for me. She left before they could see her hands shaking. Day 65. Life aboard Fort Kestrel had become a ritual of survival. Half the crew worked repairs, the other half kept watch, and Mira kept the logs. She didn't know why, maybe because talking to the recorder made it feel like someone, somewhere, might one day hear her voice and know they tried. That day, she sat cross-legged in front of the viewport. Outside, the stars were steady. Too steady. The enemy blockade hadn't moved an inch. She pressed the recorder again. Audio log, Lieutenant Mira Avas, Day 65. We are still here. Still breathing. That's about all. Her voice caught. If anyone's listening, Earth, anyone, we haven't given up. Not yet. But we will, soon. Day 68. The final message. The crew was down to rationing water. Oxygen scrubbers worked at half capacity, making the air feel heavy and metallic. Mira had started sleeping in the comms room, as if somehow she might catch a stray signal in her dreams. That morning, she knew she was going to record her last message. Not because she wanted to, but because there was nothing left to say after this. She pressed the button. Audio log, Lieutenant Mira Avas, Day 68. This will be my final entry. To whomever hears this, Fort Kestrel held as long as it could. We did our duty. I hope Earth remembers us kindly. Her voice cracked on the last word. She closed her eyes. If anyone is out there, goodbye. She reached forward to shut off the recorder. Then the sensors screamed. It wasn't the low warble of a proximity alert. It was the shrill, urgent alarm of a mass object entering real space, close, impossibly close. Myra's heart lurched as the display lit up with a single contact. A single massive contact. Her fingers flew over the console. The signature was human. Human, and big. Bigger than any ship she'd ever seen in her life. The comms officer burst into the room. Lieutenant, you're not gonna believe this. The viewport exploded in light. A shape emerged from the distortion, black against the blaze of hyperspace re-entry. It was a warship, its hull marked with battle scars, the Terran Defense Fleet emblem gleaming like a star itself. Myra's breath caught. The Vanguard Eternum. Earth had answered. The enemy blockade reacted instantly, their ships breaking formation to intercept. But the Eternum didn't hesitate. Its forward cannons lit up, spearing through the first alien cruiser before the rest could even raise shields. From Fort Kestrel, the crew watched in silence as the blockade, the noose that had strangled them for months, began to unravel in a storm of fire and steel. The Eternum's guns moved with surgical precision, tearing enemy ships apart in blinding flashes. Their return fire splashed harmlessly against her shimmering shields. In minutes, half the blockade was gone. The other half turned and fled, scattering into deep space. Mira had tears in her eyes. They came, she whispered. They actually came. Rescue. The Eternum closed to docking range, dwarfing Fort Kestrel. Its sheer presence was overwhelming, a fortress with engines, a moving citadel of war. A calm signal cut through the static, crisp and strong. Fort Kestrel, this is Admiral Kalen aboard the Vanguard Eternum. We received your beacon. You're safe now. The crew erupted into cheers, some laughing, others crying. Mira just sat there, her hands over her face, shaking. She'd clung to hope for so long, and now it had walked through the stars to meet her. Hours later, Mira stood in the airlock, watching Terran Marines flood into the station with crates of supplies. The Admiral himself stepped forward, removing his helmet. His hair was white, his eyes hard with years of command. You held out well, Lieutenant, he said. She almost laughed at that. We were about to give up. His gaze softened. And yet you didn't. That's why we're here. She wanted to say more, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she just nodded. As the Marines worked, the Eternum drifted outside, its hull gleaming under the station lights. For Mira, it wasn't just a warship, it was proof. Proof that even at the galaxy's edge, even when the void whispered that no help was coming, Earth still remembered its own. Corvus Prime, Day 187 of the siege. The planet's surface was a graveyard of cities. What had once been gleaming towers of glass and steel were now jagged silhouettes against a blood-red sky. The alien siege had stripped the world bare, no incoming ships, no outgoing messages. The orbital ring was shattered. In the capital's defense bunker, Commander Duran Voss stood over a flickering tactical display. It showed what he already knew: 90% of the planetary defense force was gone. The alien fleet in orbit was still strong, and the ground assault was moving in for the kill. Evacuation of the mines is at 40%, his adjutant reported. But we can't hold much longer. Voss didn't reply. Everyone here knew what the end looked like. They had seen it on other worlds. Above the planet, aboard the alien flagship, Admiral Yelric of the Zarth Dominion stood with his arms folded, his multifaceted eyes narrowing at the surface below. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Initiate final purge. Earth will not interfere, they have neither the reach nor the courage to come this far. His officers chittered in agreement. Earth's distance from Corvus Prime was not measured in mere light years, it was separated by hostile sectors, enemy patrols, and the political minefield of the Galactic Council. Help was not coming. On the surface, the last defense line. Colonel Rhea Vorn's voice carried over the comnet. Hold the streets. Buy the miners more time. Armored walkers and enemy infantry pushed through the capital's broken gates. Plasma fire lit up the ruined buildings. The defenders were reduced to small squads, darting from cover to cover, fighting for every meter. A sergeant muttered over the channel, "We can't keep this up. They'll be on the mines in an hour." "Then we stop them in 59 minutes, Vorn snapped. But even she knew it was hopeless. And then, the sky changed. It started as a vibration, a deep, resonant hum that rolled through the air like distant thunder. Defenders and invaders alike looked upward. The clouds tore apart, shredded by a massive hyperspace rupture. Light poured through the wound in the sky, blinding for a moment, and then it emerged. A colossal warship, black as obsidian and bristling with weapon arrays, dropped into low orbit. Its hull was engraved with the silver insignia of the Terran Defense Fleet. The comm channels exploded. "Identify that ship." "That's impossible." No, that's the solar juggernaut. The predator becomes the prey." In the alien flagship, Admiral Yelric's eyes widened. Impossible, that ship was never deployed outside the Sol sector. The solar juggernaut didn't answer with words. Its spinal rail cannon charged, the glow building into a blinding sphere of energy. A single shot tore across space, a bolt so powerful it ripped the Zarth flagship in half. The explosion lit the upper atmosphere like a second sunrise. The alien fleet scrambled, breaking formation, but the juggernaut was already moving. Batteries of mass drivers fired in controlled bursts, each round striking with surgical precision. Enemy cruisers crumpled under the impacts, their hulls venting fire and debris into orbit. From the ground, it looked like the heavens were at war. Commander Voss stared upward, the light from the juggernaut's barrages reflecting in his visor. By the throne, they actually came. Colonel Vorn's voice broke in over comms, sharp but shaking. "Push forward. They're breaking." The alien ground troops faltered, their command structure collapsing as the fleet above was annihilated. Defenders surged forward, retaking the streets. The turning tide. The juggernaut didn't just clear orbit, it punished it. Every surviving alien vessel tried to flee, but the warship's long-range particle lances tracked them relentlessly. One by one, they fell. In less than 20 minutes, the siege fleet that had strangled Corvus Prime for half a year was gone. Not defeated in battle, erased. Dropships launched from the juggernaut's belly, their descent trails carving glowing scars through the sky. They landed among the defenders, deploying Terran Marines in heavy exosuits. Supplies followed: food, medpacks, and portable shield generators to protect the mines. First contact with the survivors. Colonel Vorn approached one of the Terran officers as he stepped off the dropship. His armor was matte black, his rank insignia gleaming silver. "Colonel Vorn?" he asked. She nodded. "Captain Jace Reiner, Solar Juggernaut. We received your distress packet." Vorn blinked. "That was sent months ago." Reiner allowed a small grin. "We got here as fast as we could." In the command deck of the Juggernaut, Admiral Saran Hale looked down at Corvus Prime from the forward viewport. "Signal the colony," she ordered. "Tell them this world is under Terran protection now. The Zarth won't be coming back." Her XO hesitated. "And if the Council protests?" Hale's gaze hardened. "Let them. Today was not for them, it was for our own. In the days that followed, Corvus Prime's defenses were rebuilt with Terran technology. The survivors spoke of the moment the sky had burned, the moment the solar juggernaut arrived. Some described it as salvation, others as vengeance. But all agreed on one thing: Earth had not abandoned them. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, other besieged worlds heard the story and began to hope again.